for a Next News special report.
Brace yourselves, America. We are witnessing the political equivalent of nuclear fallout. President Biden's NATO press conference has left a radioactive cloud over the Democrat Party, gaffes, confusion, and a growing rebellion within his own ranks. We're talking a total meltdown. But wait until you see the explosive video clips that we've got. They're like watching ground zero of a campaign implosion. And stick around for my final thoughts that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about 2024. And as Biden's political career melts down, smart Americans are turning to gold, now past $2,400 an ounce. It's not that gold is getting expensive, the dollar's getting weaker than Biden's press conference performance. With countries eyeing alternatives to the petrodollar, your purchasing power could vanish quicker than the president's train of thought. Don't let your finances become a gaffe-ridden disaster. Call Global Gold Investments at 888-700-4148. Mention Next News for 5-star treatment from America's conservative precious metals dealer. Protect your wealth from political fallout. Get a free portfolio analysis and their 2024 Insure Your Money Guide. Call 888-700-4148. That's the number you see on the screen, or just tap the link down below, IRAGoldproof.com. Don't let your finances become Biden's next victim. Now, President Biden's NATO press conference wasn't just a disaster, it was political Chernobyl. Now let's dive into this radioactive mess. The New York Post didn't pull any punches. Their front page screamed, bumbling Biden gaffes his way through make-or-break Q&A. Folks, when even the mainstream media can't cover for you, you know you're in trouble. But don't take my word for it. Let's take a look at the meltdown in real time.
With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway, I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. We're sitting around. This is where Kamala is so good as well. We're sitting around. More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing?
You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that. Okay. Thank you.
This ends tonight's press conference. Thanks, everybody.
That's right. You heard it. Biden called Kamala Harris Vice President Trump. It's like he can't even keep his own administration straight anymore. Now here's where it gets nuclear. Biden actually left himself an exit strategy, saying he'd drop out if his team gave him polling data showing he can't win. Well, folks, that data might be coming sooner than he thinks. Roger Stone, the legendary Republican strategist, just dropped a bombshell. Watch.
My sources tell me, Alex, that yesterday Joe Biden's pollsters, he has 4, told him, based on their most recent polling, that he has an 85% probability of defeat. They also told him, among other things, that he is now trailing by 6 points in Pennsylvania. Now, what impact that will have remains to be seen. The biggest single bundler and fundraiser for Democrat and left causes, a fellow named Kramer in New York, has made it clear that he's not giving Joe money. The money has largely been cut off. You also have a situation in which I think Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries are increasingly nervous because the polling coming back is suddenly showing that states and districts that were heretofore thought to be safe are now suddenly competitive. Now, juxtapose that against the backdrop of Hunter Biden emerging as the gatekeeper for his father, Hunter Biden now emerging as the chief political strategist for his father. Jill Biden's position, I think, is pretty clear. You have to believe the other members of the Biden crime family fear prosecution. We know, we have bank records. This isn't conjecture or conspiracy theory. Sorry, Dan Goldman, these are what are called facts. We have bank records that show that members of the Biden crime family have taken at least $18 million from foreign entities during the time that Joe was vice president. This includes Russia, China, Ukraine, Romania, Syria, Mexico, and so on. Can you imagine if Don Trump Jr. And Eric Trump had taken money from any foreign entity? We've had yet another impeachment. I still think that it's a 50-50 proposition. I spoke to a former Democrat U.S. Senator yesterday who's a good friend who served with Biden the entire time he was in the Senate. He said you cannot underestimate his stubbornness, particularly when he's lucid. And he said at this juncture, it's 50-50. But he went on to say if he insists on running, we just see it as a cataclysmic disaster, that he would take down the entire party with him. So I still don't think we know. One thing we do know is that all the big guns in the establishment Democrat media cabal, the New York Times, the Atlantic, they're about the worst, CNN, and so on, making it absolutely clear that element of their coalition think it's time for Joe to go.
An 85% chance of defeat, trailing by 6 points in Pennsylvania. If that's not a clear sign he can't win, I don't know what is. This isn't just bad news. It's a 5-alarm fire in the White House, but wait, it gets worse. The Democrat establishment is in full panic mode. We've got reports that Obama and Pelosi are plotting to force Biden off the ticket. When Biden's own team was confronted about this, watch how they squirm.
There's been reporting that former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has also grave concerns about the Biden candidacy, some of which she expressed on earlier this week. Also, former President Obama, the same. What is the Biden's response to those two Democrats who, obviously carry a lot of weight and are well respected throughout the party?
Well, I think, again, President Biden's response to that is he's hitting the campaign trail today. Lemire, he's going to Detroit. He's going to talk to voters. We have nearly 3,000 people who will be at this event. He's going to take his message to the voters.
Notice how they dodge the question faster than Biden dodges coherent sentences. Even Biden's own people can't keep up the charade. Listen to this exchange on CNN.
There are some angry and stunned Democrats that are kind of blaming Biden's closest advisors for shielding him from the public and for the full extent of what he has been going through, which they call the president's decline. One of the top Democrats in close touch with Biden's inner circle advisors told CNN everyone who expresses any level of suspicion or contrary views, they call everyone and they beat the S out of them and say, stay on message. These are people who are trying to get a message to Joe Biden, and they feel like they're not being heard. What do you say to them?
Well, Sarah, you can put anonymous quotes up here day after day after day, and I can tell you
it's not just anonymous, though, Senator. It's not just anonymous. People have come out full. I'll let you answer the question, but it isn't just anonymous. That was one person.
You didn't let me finish answering.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
Go ahead.
No, you ask your questions.
No, I just said it's not just anonymous. We've seen 17 members of Congress come out publicly and say this, including a high-ranking member, the top member of the Intel committee coming out, Jim Himes. So what do you say to them? How do you convince them that Biden is the person that needs to be have all the horses behind him?
Okay, now that's two different issues. Let me speak to the first and then the second, okay? You put out an anonymous quote that someone claims that Biden's aides are shielding him and beating the stuffing out of them when they try to express something. I was personally on a call that lasted well over an hour last Saturday, where our president kept asking for input, asking for, give it to me straight, tell us what you're hearing. And I told him directly, I read him 2 texts, one from a longtime friend of mine and his, who is urging him to get out of the race, and another from a close friend and supporter who's urging him to fight hard and stay in.
They're admitting it, folks. Biden's inner circle's in full damage control mode, but it gets even more absurd. Biden's team is trying to spin this disaster as a win. Watch.
Are you still riding with Biden this morning after the press conference?
Absolutely. Look, Sarah, that was an impressive hour-long press conference. I'll remind you, this week was NATO week. There were 31 other NATO nations whose heads of state were in Washington all week, and several other Indo-Pacific observer countries. So President Biden went from meeting to meeting, speech to speech in his official role as our president, while also making time to do campaign events.
Impressive? Are we watching the same press conference? The excuses are getting desperate. Ron Klain, Biden's former chief of staff, is blaming it all on a cold. Watch.
Look, I thought, as the president said, he had a bad night. His practices were better, and he was tired from all the back and forth travel around the world, and was suffering from a cold that really constrained his voice and constrained his ability to be forceful in the debate. And he was trying not to lose his voice, it was very scratchy and very impacted by his cold. But the president is absolutely sharp, fit, on top of his game.
Is that right? Even the liberal media can't ignore this anymore. Here's Rachel Maddow, of all people, calling out Biden's lack of strategy. Watch.
Is how he's going to turn those polls around, what he's going to change in the campaign, what is going to change so that the current status quo, which is him losing, is not going to be the outcome. And there was no articulation of that. The closest he got to that was saying the campaign hasn't started. A lot of times people don't really start paying attention until Labor Day. That's not a great argument that we're just going to keep coasting in this losing position and hope that things turn around on their own in September. It's just not a good argument for turning things around. And it's also not an acknowledgement that things do need to be turned around if he's going to win.
When you've lost Maddow, you have lost the left. It's not just the talking heads either. Biden's own campaign team is jumping ship. Watch.
Is that there are people who are around the president who are, it's not just lawmakers outside of the president's circle. It's not just Democrats out in states or party leaders. It is people who are actually working on the president's reelection effort, who privately are saying after 2 weeks since the debate that this just isn't something that he can turn around, that their view is they're looking at numbers, they're looking at the money from donors that's dropping off, they're already reassessing to downgrade what their expectations are for bringing in money fundraising for this month. They're already cutting back on certain fundraisers in terms of the number of people who are going to be there and how much money they're going to raise. So they're looking at this whole set of data and saying that this is not a winnable situation and that this is not something that the president can turn around and believe that he needs to get out of the race. And they also believe that he needs to do so rather quickly, that it's not something that can continue to drag out. And I think when you're...
Now, the exodus is real, folks. Well, Blitzer reports that 18 Democrat lawmakers are now calling for Biden to drop out. Watch.
President Biden speaks, more Democrats defect. There are now 18 lawmakers here in Washington calling for President Biden to abandon his reelection bid. The latest from Colorado Congresswoman Brittany Pedersen just minutes ago. 3 House Democrats made the call last night, right after President Biden stumbled in his NATO news conference. Here he confuses his own vice president with his greatest political foe.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Unreal. This isn't just a crack in the dam, it is a full-blown breach. And in a final twist of irony, Biden himself gave us the best advice of the night. Watch.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Wow. Listen to Trump. For once, Joe, we agree. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. Patriots, we are witnessing a political Chernobyl. Biden's presidency is melting down, contaminating everything it touches. The Democrat Party is in full meltdown, with radiation spreading to every corner of their campaign. But there is hope. Trump and his team are the radiological response unit that America needs right now. They are equipped to contain this disaster, decontaminate our government, and restore our nation's core. As the fallout settles, remember, only a seasoned expert can clean up this level of catastrophe. In 2024, we're not just voting for a president. We are choosing our nation's survival. The clock is ticking, America. Choose wisely.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.